Welcome to the Snapscale Show, hosted by Mike Yablonowitz and Nathan Bush. In every episode, we explore the real challenges and breakthroughs happening in modern healthcare operations, from navigating compliance to virtual staffing and emerging technology. You will hear real stories from clinics, learn from healthcare leaders, and uncover practical strategies that help you run a smoother, more efficient practice, without losing focus on what matters most: patient care. Snapscale exists to take the pressure off your front office and administration work, so you can get back to doing what you love. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the latest episodes, and visit snapscale.com to learn more. Let's simplify healthcare operations together. This is the Snapscale Show.
What is up, everyone, and welcome. I'm Nathan Bush, Senior Vice President of Growth at Snapscale, and I am so excited today to guide you through this journey on how you can scale your DPC practice without drowning in paperwork and sacrificing your mission. Joining me today, I'm excited. This is the CEO of Snapscale, Mike Yablonowitz. He's a leader who has spent the past few years solving one of the most overlooked problems in private practice, this operational and admin overload. Let's talk about these DPC clinics, Mike. What's up, man?
Go. Good afternoon. Very excited.
Yeah.
I love all of our verticals equally, but this one kind of resonates with me, my neurotic personality. So I love this one.
Because it's kind of against the grain, but not really. I mean, DPC is really a return to what medicine was always meant to be. It's real relationships, real outcomes, real freedom. But even DPC doctors are getting crushed by admin, Mike, and that's where Snapscale enters. So kind of what made you passionate about this DPC space specifically, Mike?
Well, I mean, as you know, Nathan, everybody knows me. I can't really do anything well unless I really appreciate it and I have a zeal for it. I have one of those personalities that I can only work really hard at something that I really appreciate. And so every one of the verticals that we support, right, like all the different medical verticals, I try to have a personal relationship with them one way or another, because that gets my excitement, right? Like I love to help, and especially if it helps. So like with medicine, it's like giving back. So for me personally, it's a personal neurotic story where, in my my early 20s, late 20s, I was having a lot of issues, like they call it anxiety, so to speak. And, I would always feel like I was sick. I wasn't feeling well. I was nauseous. I had dizzy, blah, 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 blah. So, I was going from like one GP to another. And like in all of these, and there's nothing, by the way, this is not a negative on big groups, but there was some bigger groups and the doctors really had a lot of patients to manage, and they were wonderful people, but they didn't have a lot of time to deal with the neurotic 20-something-year-old person that, was just having issues mentally. So it was always like, go see this specialist or go see that specialist. And they take my blood pressure and be like, oh, it's really high. And I'm freaking out even more now because I have these doctors and like, they're making me nuts and they're trying to, and then finally, like I was referred to another doctor, and because it was making me crazy and it was making me worse. And he had his own practice. This is back in the, I think early 2000s, who he was like, you know what? I just can't deal with this. He had his own practice, and he sat down and he talked to me for a little while. He found out what I did, and he was, talking about my family history, all the regular stuff, but he was like taking a beat and he was really listening to me. And, when I first came in, he took my blood pressure. It was like 150/80 or whatever the hell it was. I don't remember anymore. And then as he was talking to me and I was getting to know him, and he's like, he's talking to me, he takes it again. It was like 120/70. Like I was like, what the is going on? And then he was talking to me more and that, and he realized, and he was looking at my blood, and he said, I really think that based on what we're talking about, based on looking at you looked at all the blood work. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't. He said, I think really we have to look at more of a psychiatric situation, right? So out goes psychiatrist, which he was friendly with. So he introduced me to him. It wasn't like just a blanket referral. And, a little bit of talk therapy and some I don't know what it was, Zoloft or Prozac for a few years, and I was right as rain, right? But all I'm saying is that, like, for me personally, if it wasn't for someone that really took a little bit of time to learn about who I was and find out my makeups, my family, what I did for a living, and all that sort of stuff, like, I would have probably got down that rabbit hole for a longer period of time rather than like kind of understanding it, finding out my issue was, and dealing with it. And like I said before, Nathan, I'm not begrudging all the other doctors, right? Like, well, a couple of them said like, what he said, dude, you have enough issues to kill a person with, like, just pick two. Like, you know, they have a lot of stress too, right? Like, a lot of them have like these, you know, these quote unquote quotas, for lack of a better term, that they have to hit, right? So I'm not begrudging them, but it was this guy that went against the grain. That's like, you know what? Like, let me do patient care. That changed, for lack of a better term, my life. And when I started getting into this type of field, I knew that I wanted to get back to supporting these people, because as insurance has its own challenge. We're not going to get into an insurance conversation, but everything is for the mighty dollar, and everybody needs to make money, and it gets more and more of that pressure on the doctors. They have less and less time to spend than they did in the early 2000s diagnosing a neurotic, male or female or whoever.
That's right.
I love this move forward because it's really going back to, as I say, the way, healthcare, doctoring should be, for lack of a better term, right? Like listening, spending a few minutes, and we kind of lost that over at least the last decade. And a lot of our clients, right, they just want to get back to providing patient care. They don't want to deal with it. So knowing full well that a lot of them want to do that, and then they go to running their own business, they lack a lot of that information to do it right. So that's why I thought the mating of outsourced staff, compliant outsourced services with the DPC market would be a phenomenal way to kind of support these people cost effectively, so they could provide the type of care that they want to do and that I needed to so many other people, Nathan. So that's really my story of why. Absolutely.
And guys, if you just hopped on now, or you're watching on replay, or maybe you're jumping in here at some point, or you've received this video from somebody on replay after the fact that we did this webinar, I want you to hang in there, even if you're not in the DPC industry. I'm going to share throughout this entire show just little nuggets of things that could help you that the DPC industry is doing. And if you're in the DPC industry, don't think to yourself, yeah, I do that. What I want you to do is think, how well do we do the stuff that we talk about today? Because we're talking about operational excellence. And before we get into too much of the operations, the technology, some systems, some tools, resources, and all the stuff we're excited about from our standpoint, Mike, why do you think now is the right time for clinics to operate a DPC practice? Like, why is now the exact right moment in our history in the United States? What do you think?
I think kind of like what I talked about before. I think it's just needed. I think that a lot of people get passed over, and a lot of people are forced down a rabbit hole they don't need to be, unless there was some time spent from the beginning. Back in the 90s, there was, or late 90s, there was a surgence of it, and then it went back for one reason or another. So I think now that, like I said before, we're stuck in that quagmire of insurance and and needing to see a lot of people. I think now is as good a time as ever to provide that quality of care. Like I said even before this show, like the DPCs are the gatekeepers. Like, people forget, like, it's the gateway of like figuring out what you actually need. And if they're not provided with the right information, if they're not given the right time to make a proper, for quote unquote, diagnosis, you could go down certain paths that could cost you a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of anguish. So that these people are the gatekeepers, I feel like, to total medicine.
Yeah. It kind of leads me into this thought process around like mission. Like, we're a mission-driven organization. We recently just partnered with a hospital in Davao to do this fun run for children with club feet, and it's really bringing back life and joy to a lot of different people with the ability for us to connect. But what do you really see, Mike, is the mission for DPCs, and how does that really how does operational bloat, like them overspending on operations, how does that get in the way of this mission that we kind of talk about, that what DPCs are really doing right now?
Yeah, I think, like, from a mission, I just think that a lot of the clients that we speak with are just stuck in the maze of business, right? They're stuck in getting new patients, right? They're stuck in verifying the patients that are going to show up there. They're stuck in revenue cycle management. They're stuck in all of the stuff, right, that can easily be outsourced to somebody to allow them to not only provide the patient care that they went to school for, but to also make the money they need to make to satisfy a living, right? So again, altruism is great. I know a lot. I'm telling you, I know a lot of our clients, they're first altruistic. They want to provide patient care, but at the end of the day, you got to pay your bills. So, the ability to have like a managed BPO like us in your corner allows you to kind of, I hate saying lack of a better term, kind of forget about all of the admin and the front office and the back office, and really focus on, treating patients, when at the end of the day, Nathan, makes you money. So, it's really kind of like what they really need, but it has to be cost effective, right? We have clients that do bill insurance, right? We have clients that also have a subscription service and don't bill insurance. But a lot of these people, are not making a ton of money, right? They're making a good living, but just like our business, just like any business, they're running a business. So they have to make sure that their numbers are clean, that they have more revenue that comes in than expense. And especially when it comes to manpower, not to mention all the other ancillary stuff that we do, like we're always keeping in touch with HIPAA compliance and looking at the latest and greatest technologies to help them do their back office and front office better. But just the staffing is just a nightmare for a lot of people. Like, not only is it really expensive to staff, but with a lot of the turnover nowadays, a lot of our clients are spending more time like having somebody that just calls out, that then derails their entire workday, and it just creates just a distraction from what they signed up to do. And that's what companies like Snapscale and any other managed service provider should be able to give back to the doctor who really wants to make a living and give back to society, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super pumped to work with DPC. It's really paving the way, Mike, for innovation in healthcare. It really is, in my opinion. The same way that DPCs are establishing employer-paid memberships, like going out to different major employers and offering selling memberships. Our team just met with a radiology practice, scan your bones and tell you what's going on. They had a nationwide network, and they were doing the same thing. They were going out and meeting with employment organizations, and they were setting up membership, very similar to what DPCs are doing. And they're not receiving insurance money for this. This is employer-employee paid benefit that employers are offering to their team. And it's actually saving thousands of dollars in health insurance programs. It's crazy what they're doing right now in health insurance. Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of that, especially when we go to the shows, Nathan. We're seeing a lot of innovative, not anti-insurance or anti-prescription, but a lot of ways that people are doing group type of situations to overall lower the cost for everybody. There's a lot of cool stuff that's going on right now to kind of fight against, the big business, so to speak, of insurance, because it's a little nice, but not fair kind of to everybody right now. I mean, I think it'll regulate eventually, but right now, like, I don't know, we're not getting into that. Okay? But
we're getting ready to go to the shows, and there's 2 DPC shows that we're getting ready to go to. If you're getting this afterwards, that we probably met you just at the recent show that we were just at, right. And we're going to hear all about the excitement around the transition from insurance-based medicine to back to way medicine's supposed to be, like Mike was talking about. The thing is, though, Mike, is you can't practice exceptional medicine when your head's in the billing system or you're trying to make phone calls or playing phone tag with patients. This is where plateaus come in. And even office managers and office administrative assistants that are in the practice, sometimes they don't show up. Kind of, what are the top 3 time wasting tasks that DPC clinic owners or managers are still doing? What do you think?
3? Well,
I'm trying to be generous. I'm trying to be kind to the audience.
No, let's start talking about the most anxiety ridden, right? Like revenue cycle management, and also like verifying benefits. I know it sounds silly, but if you don't have somebody or some sort of service verifying your benefits, not only is that a nightmare because again, the insurance company make it that way to like call, and everything is different, right? Some of them you have to call, some of them you can hit a button in the EMR and it kind of verifies it, but like for some verticals, specialties, they don't trust it because it could say it's approved, but when it goes to when you go to get your payment, they're like, oh no, it wasn't approved. So that is a huge thing that is a time waster, and it's anxiety ridden, right? If a doctor has to worry about whether he's going to get paid to do a service, it's just anxiety, right? So that's the biggest one I think of. That like verifying benefits and revenue cycle management. And the other one too, especially for DPCs, is like answering the phone and answering the emails. Because remember, I don't use the word concierge, but you're in that market, right? You want to be always on, and if somebody calls, you want the call to be picked up. If someone, texts via Spruce or any other service, you want to have it picked up and managed because that's what people are paying for. So answering the phone, getting back to people, and also when you answer the phone, knowing what questions to ask. So if you have a new patient, they're given the right answers to possibly create a new member, right? So that's the second one. There's a ton of others. I have a huge list, but let me see if and then again, confirmations. Systems they do confirm, but a lot of patients need like a human touch to just make a phone call, say, hey, Billy, remember like your appointments, on Thursday. And not only just that part, right? We have people that, doctors that have like multiple habitual people that do not come. So it's actually keeping track of that, being a little bit sterner, but being nice. You got to take that all away from the doctor. They have to worry about, patient care. You need a company, a service, a person that can actually do that work and divorce you from it. And those are kind of the 3. There are a ton of others, but like those are the 3 ones that come off the top of my head. I did look down a piece of paper because I know there's a ton, but those are the first 3 that came out of my head.
Yeah, man, we have plenty of different, we call them statements of work here, of all the different tasks and things that the DPC clinics ask our organization to do. Mm-hmm. And Mike went through those, I know, prior to this, because we were going to be talking about this, and pull those major tasks that the DPCs are having them do. And those were the ones that appeared kind of the most through that process. Now, we sent everybody that registered online a copy of this Evergreen case study, and they can go and request a copy of this Evergreen case study. You don't have to just join a webinar to get a copy of this Evergreen case study. It is a resource that we have as an organization that we provide for DPCs all the time. And Dr. Lisa Scherback, she was a small startup practice. She was a DPC. She became overwhelmed with her task. Mike, they can read it for themselves, but what were some of the key takeaways as to why we put this case study together?
Well, before I talk about that, it's also important to know that we don't solicit this any more than asking, right? Remember, the way that we grow, maybe a lot of people on this know this, is mostly by referrals.
Yeah.
Like we really lean into our doctors and clients
and brand partners.
To tell others. Those are our biggest advocates, is our clients. So we just say, hey, doc, Leslie, Dr. Scherback, would you mind just talking about your how you're using the services to kind of educate others? And she was more than happy to do that. And we have all of our other verticals. We have tons of quote unquote raving fans, right? That'll be more than happy to help us because again, it goes down to the main thing I said in the beginning, Nathan. most of these people are here to help, right? They're here to help. Like, they want to help people. That's why they went to school for 50,000 years, right? They want to help people the right way. It's the same thing with business. They, just like how I am, if someone treats me really well, I will treat them super well. It's the same thing. I'm not going to lump everybody together, but it's the same thing with doctors and clinicians. They just need help. And if you give them help, they will help you back. Unlike other business units, which is more like, oh my God, I'm not going to share my vendor with other people. So, when we started getting into this, like 5 years ago during COVID, in the PT world, it was just so amazing to me that it was just such a give and take. And that's why most of our business comes from others, existing clients. But again, remember, we have to do good work. This year alone, right? Half of the full-time employees that we placed came from either clinics that were growing or referral partners. So it's just such a testament, not only just to what we do and what a great service we provide, right? But how we're really being seen by our clients.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And it's giving me back all the feels as to how I started, because I really wanted to help these people out that helped me out when I was younger and needed the help. So it's like a full circle, and it's just amazing.
Yeah. As a DPC practice owner, you didn't go to get your license in medicine and your doctorate and all that, and then them teach you a bunch of business classes. You might have had some, but you didn't get the full benefit of understanding how to be a business owner. No. And when you sign up and say, now I'm going to start my practice, there's challenges that come with that. And a lot of people think, Mike, that the only answer is hiring another stateside full-time person, and that's just going to solve the problem. And we actually have solved a lot of problems within DPC practices just from meeting with, you, me, somebody on the team that can help the practice of provider owner kind of understand these buried admin tasks that are consuming hours of their time. What would you say to a clinic owner who thinks, I'll just hire another person instead of meeting with Snapscale or meeting with somebody that knows how to work through this?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I went off on a tangent before in my excitement, and I kind of didn't answer about Leslie and Dr. Surbach, but again, for her, we do billing for her. Well, I have this right. We do billing. We do prior auths, referral coordinations, scheduling. She uses Spruce for secure messaging, so the platform, and all the recording of the EMR usage. And we do some revenue cycle management. It's kind of like a total end to end. Answer the phone, confirmations, all the stuff that I said before is what we do for her. And again, like you said before, she started out. She was small. And we kind of really worked with her to help her grow. So some of the larger practices have us just doing one thing, or we have what we call a pod, right? Of 3 to 5 to 6 people. And we say, okay, based on what you're doing here, we need X amount of people doing insurance verification. We need Y amount of people doing confirmations. We need, one person doing answering the phone. So this was, but the newer and the upstarts are the much more complicated, because they're relying on you to really kind of help them start every way from doing helping them with everything, but also how you answer the phone, because they're, so for her specifically, we kind of did end to end, and we kind of helped her as she got started. And because we know how to use all of the services, it was a jump start for her as well. So, that was for her. And just adding, in answer to your question about just adding one person, that's why a lot of people kind of hire us, because especially, we've had these laughing conversations where I'll talk to doctors, and they'll say, how much do you charge after they go through? And I go, between $11 and $13 an hour, depending on. So I said, I don't know, $12 an hour. It's really depending on the type of person we find, but it's usually between $11 and $13 an hour. Usually ends at 12 all in. and one guy's like, one doc actually in California, he goes, $12 an hour, and they show up, and they, and I go, yeah, doc, they show up. He goes, Mike, I'm trying to hire people for $30 or $40 an hour, and they show up for a week and they disappear. So in answer to your question, it's like finding just a person is a bandage in my estimate, especially in this market. Like you can find a great person. There are people that are watching this right now that say, Jim is awesome. Like I couldn't live without Jim, and I'm having a great time with Jim, right? And he's making my practice perfect. But what we do is we say, but what if Jim gets sick, right? But what if Jim gets hurt? And a lot of, like some of the people, some of the clients that we're here for, we are their backup, right? But we're also their main person. So even people that have Jim, they really need a managed company like a Snapscale to protect themselves from when Jim gets sick. And that is the biggest thing. So throwing another body at it, forgetting about the fact now we're going through an issue like with manpower in the US where they're having a tough time finding people, hiring people, getting them to stick around. But even if you do find Jim, right, or Jenny,
right,
he's going to get sick. And then really, like, depending on your size practice, do you want to hire two? Is the cash flow going to support that? And then two, do you really need three? And using a service provider like a Snapscale, you can like mitigate your risk by having us, but you can also like grow organically. Like a lot, I don't, and also, our motto isn't to get rid of Jim or Jenny. It's to keep them. It's to use us in the background to augment, right? To be there when they're sick, and then also, like, again, a big part of what we do is we support the doctor's practices, not just, giving them a resource. Like, we're there to give them best practices on technologies, on how to answer the phone, on, we do a lot of work. We're a HIPAA-compliant company, and I'm very proud. I have a lot of pride saying that. So we constantly provide information on where, like, HIPAA compliance is going, the Cures Act, how it may affect them. We're constantly giving these hardworking professionals this like ongoing information that they need to know in a way that they can understand. And with webinars like this, on demand, and when they have the time to watch it. So not only are we keeping them up to date on compliance matters as what we do. Some of the stuff we do is different than others, but we're also showing them a lot of cool stuff going on, right? Like different ways to bring in new leads, different ways to fill their schedules. We also spend time in the AI space, in the research and development end of things. So it gives them a little bit of a taste of what's to come, and we show them some cool stuff along the way as well. So, again, throwing a body at the situation is definitely you need bodies to help you, but it really isn't going to help as you grow, as you scale, and also considering like the way, the job market is right now. It's not always, sustainable or you can't count on it. So it goes back to my original thing, like whatever the doctor can do to manage, to mitigate his risk and mitigate his anxiety level, because, running a business, I don't care how smart you are, it's anxiety ridden. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety with it, is kind of worth its weight in gold. And that's what a company like ours can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So it brings me to a thought from some of the things that you said, especially things that I've worked with DPCs on in the past. And if you're brand new and you're a startup DPC and you don't have any systems in place and no business that's ever happened, Mike always talks about, guys, not outsourcing your core competencies. So what one of the things I recommend is maybe an executive assistant, maybe 10, 15, 20 hours a week in order to establish those workflows. It's going to be a stateside person. It's going to be a lot more expensive, but that will help you get those core things set up on how your business does things.
Right.
But then that person's going to be overwhelmed. You're not going to want to increase their hours to 40, 50 hours a week and pay those types of rates in order to be able to scale your operations of your business. And so that's where a virtual assistant comes in. That's where a HIPAA compliant healthcare virtual assistant comes in. And as your practice grows, you don't have to add more stateside staff. You can literally hire virtual. This is just international staffing. Is literally, at the end of the day, it's international staffing with management behind it in a backbone so that you can scale and grow your practice. And so as you're doing so, then your practices are documented, your systems are documented. But Mike, how do you ensure the virtual assistants are HIPAA compliant? How do we ensure the virtual assistants are HIPAA compliant and trained specifically on those workflows?
Well, I mean, I cheated. I pay. So, I again, like I said in the very beginning, like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it the right way. But I enlisted digital compliance from the beginning, and they're an outsourced HIPAA compliant consultancy firm, and they've been with me every step of the way, So everything from looking at our policies, our procedures, they will constantly challenge our BAAs. They'll constantly challenge our tech staff to make sure we're doing things the right way. They keep us up to date with all the latest, movements and changes that are going on in order to give us the best shot of being as compliant as possible. I learned very early that you got to stick with your strengths and have others help you with not your strengths. That's not really even a real sentence, and they have been amazing since day one. And so you got to bring the right people on. It's like, in our company, you got to bring the right people on the bus. They're just part of the people on the bus. I mean, that's it. Period.
That's fantastic. And what about training? How do we ensure that they're properly trained?
That is based on our training team. And our training team is made up of people who have been living and breathing healthcare virtual assistant tasks. Every vertical, has its own different way of doing things and all different technologies. But we have the different way of handling each one specifically. Like, so DPC have their own different, technologies that we train our people on, and that sort of stuff. And you just got to be able to do that. We have a couple ways that we get into training. I don't know if we're going to do, but I'll be very quick about it. We have something called client-led training, and we have something called professional development course, or PDC. So because we have some clients that say, you know what, just get me someone wicked smart, as I like to say, my boss people out there, and put them in front of a camera with me, and I will tell them exactly the way I want them to do it. And that's client-led training. Now, again, since we have to manage the people, we have to manage the success, we are there and we are recording that session, and we create a knowledge base based on that recording. So even after the doctor does this whole thing, or the practice manager or whatever, and teaches them, we know at the end of the day, we have to know it as well, because if God forbid there's an issue, we have to provide the continuity. Now, 9 times out of 10, it's exactly the same stuff we do anyway, but with the client's flair, right? And that's important because it's their practice, and every practice is a little different. Now, we also have something called PDC, the professional development courses, where we actually create our own trainings based on our experience. So, for example, since we've been working in these vertical markets, these specialties for so long, again, we know what these doctors need. So a lot of doctors and practice managers don't have the time to train, right? So we will do it. We will have them trained, and we will say, hey, doc, here's your people. They're trained on this, and this, right? And all I want you to do is spend a little bit of time with them and give them what makes your practice better. I mean, I'm different, right? To give them that special touch. So when they answer the phone or whatever, they know what makes you different. So it's kind of either way. Remember, like when you're dealing with a practice, you can't cookie cutter everything. You got to meet these people where they are. And some people want to do it themselves, and some people, don't. And that's how we have to do it. Because remember, this whole thing, when people say that they had a crappy experience with outsourcing, it's because the foundation wasn't set up right, right? You know how hard it is to bring someone in your own office in the United States, and you have issues, right? Picture if you take them 1,000 or so miles away, different cultures, and you're not a zealot on how you get the foundation set up, you're bound for failure. So, we knew very, very well early on that we may kind of know how to do things, but it has to be the way that the doctor wants to do it to a certain extent. Now, we're there as a consultant. So if they're saying they're running around 16 times and hitting their head against the wall, and that's how they do something, and we know that there's a better way to do it, we'll give them a recommendation. But for the most part, we know we need to they're calling us because they have a challenge. They need help. So we kind of meet them where they are, which is why, again, when I started, when a lot of our competitors are having everything overseas, I knew it was important, albeit much more expensive, to have our staff in the US that's forward facing to our clients. Because I knew that when it comes to sales, when it comes to creating an SOW, when it comes to onboarding, right? These are all things that are so integral to getting this set up properly in the beginning. And it doesn't make sense. Forget about ethnocentrism. It has nothing to do with that. You cannot expect somebody that's a business owner, is running a small business, to then be able to offload all of the information they have onto somebody from another culture, right? As effectively as they can with somebody that's in the same culture or their same native language. So I knew that, that was a big deal. And, I've spent a better part of 2 decades, I'm an old man, in business services, in small business services. So I always know that you need to if you're going to handle an issue, you need to handle a problem, you got to do it in a way that works best for the person you're handling it for. And that is probably one of the best things that we've done to really stand out from the crowd and really provide, these doctors with the best chance of this outsourced solution working, right? We're very big on creating a statement of work, knowing exactly what they're doing, sticking to them, and this all comes together in a U.S. presence in native tongue. That is it. And also it's important to say, and I'll stop that, during these onboarding calls, we're not hiding the Filipino staff at all, or the Indian staff. We're introducing them in the conversation, right? And the clients know, oh, that's Albert, that's Joy. Oh, they speak perfect English or whatever. We just want to make sure that this foundation is as perfect as possible, because we know if the foundation is set up perfectly, it's easy. It works like butter. If you miss steps in the foundation, you don't meet the people where they are, it's a nightmare. So, and that's kind of where I could say that why we have such a good success and why our clients are adding more people and they're referring people is just because we stick to a structure. And we're accountable to everything that we do. We don't hide behind email or about text messages. Not saying we don't communicate that way, but we're always accessible when they need us.
Yeah. You said something that really resonated, because I have lots of conversations with clinicians and office managers looking to staff through Snapscale. And one of the things you talked about is the U.S. presence. And the reason, guys, this is so critical. Please hear me when I say this. If you're signing a BAA directly with your staff in another country, okay? If you're signing a BAA directly with a staff member in another country, you don't have just a HIPAA issue at that point. You have a security issue. Because here's the problem. The U.S. government, according to all of our consultants, cannot go into another country and litigate HIPAA. And so when you sign a BAA with Snapscale, it's with our company, our U.S.-based organization. And so we are telling you up front that we're bringing in consultants to ensure we're HIPAA compliant, and we're willing to put our name behind it. And that's the biggest difference between a matchmaking service and a BPO service like us, who doesn't hide, who has a U.S. presence, and who is an organization that's willing to stand behind what we do. I mean, HIPAA compliance is, we've invested heavily into that. And so you don't just have a HIPAA problem when you're signing a BAA with somebody, you have a security problem, don't you, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, we take all the risk. I mean, with our, we're partners, and a lot of the companies out there are not. I mean, simply put, you sign the BAA with our US based company. It's not like we have the Filipino agents signing a BAA that does, lack of better terms, is nothing. We're true partners with our doctors and our clinicians.
So that's one of the major, if you're considering different options, guys, that's why I brought it up. It's one of the major differences. I'm telling you right now, do your research, right? You got to pick it, whatever staffing you're going to do, you've got to make sure that you pick the right model. We're telling you that we've done the research and we've set this stuff up to be able to support you and help you. In addition to HIPAA compliance, Mike, which is one of the predominant things I think that we are, this is opinion. This is first, this is Nathan's opinion, nobody else's. We are the best HIPAA compliant organization in the world when it comes to outsourced staffing. And I feel that way because of our investment and our commitment to it. We don't just have like HIPAA is a afterthought at our organization. It's a cultural based thing.
Right.
But
yes.
Culture is the other most important thing. It's not just a HIPAA culture. It's a culture around incentive. It's a culture around benefits for employees. It's a employee first culture in our organization where we have, employee outings and awards and things happening that are major retention things that even sometimes Fortune 500 companies can't get to. How did you establish, Mike, I'm curious just personally, how did you establish this culture that we have at this organization the way that we have as we continue to grow and then maintain that?
Well, it's all about how you treat your people. I mean, we treat our people like we're professional services. Like, we don't call the people like rank and file, as I like to call these people. I refer to our employees that work for our clients as the talent, right? And when the regular culture, so to speak, overseas is more about the employees and the employers, and you're a rank and file, you're not worth anything, and your managers are big shots. We just shifted that mold because, remember, like, we're providing a professional service to our clients. So we are doing it more like these people are like, people are gonna hate my analogies, but like, a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or whatever, professional services, they have people around them that support them, right? That provide them incentives, right? That help them, right? They're not just, beating them, right? And like saying, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that. We're here to support them because at the end of the day, the people are writing all of our paychecks. If they don't do a good job, if they don't take care of our clients, then we don't have a job. So it's just always the way that I've handled all of my employees, because I know I've always been in the service business, and I always know that without the people, I don't got anything. I have nothing to offer. So I can do all this cool strategy and all this cool marketing, and I can do all this research, but if I don't have anybody that's doing anything, then I don't have anything. So our great, reputation in the market, all of our referrals, all of our all of our clients are adding people. It's great. It doesn't have to. I'm not on the phones, So I know first that it's because of them is that I have a business that's thriving, and because of that, like you said, we give a lot back. We provide, everything from of course, healthcare, but we provide cash advances to people that get jammed up in certain situations. Again, we have a control around it. But for example, in the Philippines, a lot of times, if you don't pay a certain amount of fees, if you're in the hospital, they will just keep you in the hospital unless you pay. And a lot of people are providing for their families and older, parents and stuff like that. So like, we provide a cash advance for things like that, for medical emergencies. Again, for anything that's like is an issue. There could be a typhoon, there could be a rain issue, and their roof blows off, right? Our staff makes like very good money comparatively, and we can have another conversation about that. But again, a huge disaster like that can cripple, coupled with the cultural dynamic where the child takes care of the parents. It can have a devastating effect in major issues. So, considering there's no usury laws in the Philippines, I was noticing that our people were kind of getting jammed up in loans that they couldn't satisfy. And I just felt like that was an awful thing, and we could do it. So what better way to take care of your people, but do it in a way that works for them and helps them, because it gives back to us, which gives back to our clients for continuity. So it all works. Now, again, like if somebody, bought too many TVs and stuff like that, like I'm not giving them a dime, but that's not true. I have given people money for spending they shouldn't done, but then I made them go to credit counseling and we brought it into the office. That was kind of cool. So I'm always trying to work with our people and provide them with like as much as we possibly can from benefits, because like as long as they help me out, right, and our clients, I'm going to do everything I can to help them out. And that's like the biggest thing. And then from a pure like business ratio standpoint, is a lot of times like in the what they call BPO, business process outsourcing, like they try to provide a whole bunch of employees and only one manager, right? And again, you want to squeeze out as much profit as possible. Let's say the ratio, we're a little different, and I'll tell you, but let's say it's 10 to 15 people per manager. All of a sudden people say, 20 people, 25 people. So then all of a sudden, if you have 25 or 30 people, you have one manager looking after 25 or 30 people, how much support are you giving that person? So all of the other pomp and circumstance people say about about all the benefits that we do, we keep a very strong ratio that we're constantly looking at of how many people go to one manager, so we can provide the concierge service that we give to our we expect to give to our clients, because we know fully well that you can't provide great service if you don't have good management. Also, our managers too know exactly what the people are doing. So this isn't like a didn't come in late. It's helping them out with everything. So it's not like an absentee manager. It's someone that knows exactly what they're doing in the AMRs, can really talk the talk with the person, help the person out, and also can have a better conversation with the client if they need to. Because remember, we're here to support the doctors, and a lot of times they may say they need this, and this, but then a lot of times as practices grow and change and morph, and like, oh, I need to do this, and oh, now I need to do that, and oh, John is great, he's doing everything, right? We have to protect the agent from the client a lot of times, because they will say no, but we have to make sure that we're doing exactly what we said we're going to do, and that if not, work with the client to say, hey, Dr. Jim, we're adding all these things, right? There's no way, your agent's going to burn out in 2 seconds. And 9 times out of 10, they have no idea. So and how can you do that if you have a huge ratio? If you have like 30 people being managed by one person, it doesn't happen. In addition, what we did was we instituted, again, these are multiple layers of unbillable management. I feel it's essential to carry out the type of concierge service that we say we're doing. What we did also is that we also created what they call a service, an SME, okay? And what that is it's a manager below the manager. And this person is somebody that has been in a client service position for 1+ years, that has had exemplary work product. Like they have been great. They have done something special for the client. They're constantly helping out. They have no attendance issues. And those people, they stay within the client, right? But they get a very nice raise, and they're given a little bit more to do. So as much as the account manager is in charge of, let's say, it depends, we always change the ratio based on what's going on, 8 to 10 people, right? The SME is in charge of 2 or 3 or 4, but just like a big brother, where because they're both they're both working, the new guy and the veteran. hey, I'm in hint right now. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Oh, touch here, here, and here. So we really provide like a lot of touch points to support the agent as well as to support the client. And a lot of our competitors, for lack of a better term, don't spend that much money on culture or on consistency and continuity.
No, and you've been able to do that consistently over the years. I mean, the last 3 years that you and I have been working together, Mike, you have constantly done nothing but invest in that culture. And it shows because it's been consistently the same. I mean, from management to benefits to perks to, team being excited to be here, people willing to jump in and do additional projects like employee videos and stuff like that. Like it's been incredible to see that happen over the last couple of years working together. I know we're coming up on an hour here, and so there's a couple of things that I want to talk about right before we go. First and foremost, before we wrap up here, patients, Mike, in the DPC industry, as much as we're talking about supporting the doctors, patients deserve transparency also in their medical. And that only happens if the back end isn't a disorganized mess. If they have the support staff, same way our staff needs to be supported, the doctor needs to be supported in order to be able to provide exceptional care for their patients. So how does Snapscale, 2 questions, how does Snapscale improve transparency, billing clarity, and ultimately patient trust? And what tools are our staff members familiar with, and what are they working with? And what are the most prominent tools for a DPC practice? Maybe somebody's just getting started out.
Now you're testing my mental acuity. Those are a lot of questions at once.
Let's start with trust and then tools.
Well, trust is all about communication, and I know it sounds so cliche, but it's about our reporting that we send out. We have basic reporting that we do to just hold accountable to the tasks that we're saying that the doctors want us to do, and then we'll always update that with some basic other stuff the doctor wants to see, because again, it's all about that what's it called again, that visibility. And what better way to do it than to have something that they can see and that's tangible. And that allows us to get on top of any issues in the beginning, and also allows the doctors to see what's going on as well. It's very simple because we want to be simple, because we don't want to bother with a whole lot of information. However, we will customize it to what the doctor wants to see, because at the end of the day, transparency is key. Because
are we making the calls? Or are we not making the calls?
Yeah, are we not making calls?
Are we sending the labs? Or are we not sending the labs?
Exactly. And then when it comes to that's basically across everything. And that comes down to the foundation, right? Because how do you support if you don't provide information? And also when it comes to billing transparency, that's just my own thing where like we just send, if people work, they get paid. People don't get paid if they don't work. And we literally send with every invoice timesheets. So there's no the random amounts. So that's the transparency around that. And that's always been the 2 biggest things, right? People want to know, are they getting what they sign up for, and are they paying for what they're supposed to pay for? I got to figure out how to get rid of this thumbs up stuff from Apple. And when it comes to technologies, things are always changing. And, when it comes to phones, we're pretty agnostic when it comes to phone systems. A lot of times we use the phone systems, of course, that the clients have. But again, we use DialPad, which is a HIPAA-compliant VoIP option. And for the people that don't have it or don't, they could just forward phones to us, and we have our own IVR message saying, thank you for calling Dr. Bush, right? And, when it comes to phones, it's very agnostic. A lot of times we do consult with the doctors, and I know a lot of people out there are going to think I'm being silly, but you'd be surprised that when people are setting up clinics, they forget things such as, in the beginning saying stuff like that. If you're having a medical emergency, please hang up and dial 911, right? There are certain things that we know if it's our phone system, we have those messages. And that's not saying we want to support the phone systems, right? We don't necessarily want to have our own phone system, but we'll kind of meet the client where they are. But we'll also, as part of onboarding and the custom, we'll make sure that when they're setting up their phone system, that they have all the right messages in there. So there's a lot of dial pad we like a lot. Weave is awesome. Spruce has a pretty cool phone system too. There are just a bunch out there. Even Google Voice is good, right? They're HIPAA compliant. But as long as they have the right uptime and we don't miss calls, Ring Central is another one that people like, is the most important thing, because, I don't like using any VoIP phone system that doesn't have a track record, because when you miss a call, you miss a patient like me that was anxiety ridden, right? You miss a potential new appointment, right? Or a new patient, and you miss someone that has information. So it's not like, you really have to make sure your technology is up to snuff. I also think that like the SMS text message is essential. And again, like I said, there are a lot of Weave has something built in, but we've been using Spruce forever. And we love Spruce as a technology, and so does the DPC practice. They've been doing this forever, and they specialize in just that HIPAA compliant, connectivity and communication. Let me see. I have a whole list of stuff that we have, but at the end of the day, when it comes to EMRs, there's your hint, of course, right? Like there's your relations, your Atlas. And when it comes to the communication, Spruce, right? Clara and SignalWire is one that we can support and work with. Insurance verifications within the EMRs, but there's Validity, there's Ribbon Health that we use. Forms, Jot form is huge now, HIPAA compliant, intake queue type form. And then SOPs, look, I mean, a lot of our clients, don't have, they kind of come to us for that. Like, we kind of create it with them. We use Trainer Central from Zoho. But there's a lot of different things that are out there. If you're looking at creating one, Trainial is really good. I've seen that a lot. We've been working with that. Notion is good. But at the end of the day, like I always say, Nathan, an SAP task management is only as good as the information. So, and it's only as you look at it. So you want to put it in a Google form, remember Google is HIPAA compliant. You signed the BA right with them. You want to use, Google Notes. So you want to use Google Forms and stuff like that, knock it out, But again, when it comes to that sort of stuff, as long as you're following the process, is the most important thing. So, again, when it comes to running the engines and stuff like that fuel the practices and the EMRs and the communication tools and that sort of stuff, that's really at the end of the day something that any good managed service provider will do for you. Again, what Snapscale does, and a lot of the ones that, are really going above and beyond with the way they take care of their people, and they incentivize their people based on client success, and really take care of them, is really trying to make sure that that the patients are getting that level of service that they need, that when they call up, that person on the other end is smiling, right? And they're happy to listen. And they are listening, because a big thing that we teach is listening skills, because if you're not listening, you can miss stuff that can have a devastating impact on someone's health. So that is it. There's a lot of people that can learn how to use technologies. There's not a lot of people that know empathy, and there's not a lot of people that can sit and listen to somebody that's having an anxiety attack and may not know not to give information, but listen until they can get a doctor, a nurse practitioner, or someone there that's qualified that can help. And, and not only are the Filipino people, very hospitable, and they're very caring and nurturing, but you also have to make sure you have the right people, just like in America and anywhere else, that they're listening, they're understanding, right? They're not just saying yes. And if you have that, you got perfection, you got compliance, you got someone that's inherently caring, and they have good listening skills, and they know how to use all the technology, and they have a company behind them that's fully versed in that has the BAA and has the management within the US that can meet you where you are. You've got the perfect storm for, that's a bad analogy, but it's the truth. So we're not doing anything crazy. I'm just running the play that I said I wanted to run from the beginning, and I'm not taking no for an answer. I'm not doing any shortcuts. It's like the joke is like, if you're, we have, a lot, not, but, people that played sports, they can run a play. People that were in the military, they can run a play. Not saying that if you don't play sports, you can't run a play, but not saying that. But like, you just have to be able to like know what play you're running and run it the right way, and don't deviate unless you see something there that you need to deviate with. And at the end of the day, any BPO that's in the managed service provider space like ours has to just keep those pillars. And if they do, they'll provide awesome service. If they skimp on taking care of the people, they skimp on listening to their clients, they skimp on all that sort of stuff, you become just a crappy service. And no one wants that. And no one can afford that from a compliance standpoint either.
So true, Mike. So true. If a clinic owner is watching this and they're feeling overwhelmed, or their current staff is feeling overwhelmed, what is the first step they should take after this webinar, Mike? What do you suggest?
Just make a phone call. I mean, I always say that like this isn't something that again, foundation is key. Understanding is key. So we talk to a lot of people all the time, and they're either not ready, they're not sure. But if you don't make that phone call or you don't send that email, you should really talk to somebody at the end of the day, definitely. But you don't research, you don't know what you got. And in today's day and age, there's no reason why you should not be outsourcing the administrative work, even to just mitigate the risk, right? For when Jen or Jim are out, because it's cost effective. The technology is out there that wasn't there 10, 20 years ago. You got to look into it, for your business.
Yeah. Let me wrap up by saying this, guys, and we'll get out of here. It's right at an hour. I'm going to say it plainly. The clinics that are growing today are the ones that are systemizing intelligently. In Snapscale, we just happen to be that system. Mike helped to build that system for you. If you're serious about freeing up your time, restoring your focus, and increasing your profitability, then this is your next step. Review the free case study that we gave you, that we sent you for registering. Get your questions answered by scheduling an appointment with one of us. It's that simple. If you registered online, we're either going to call you, we'll send you an email, or you can click the link on snapscale.com/start, and you can take your clinic to the next level of growth. I appreciate the time that you've had. I'll let Mike wrap up with any final thoughts.
I said it all. I think everybody should be looking into this service, whether it's Snapscale or someone else that's HIPAA compliant, because at the end of the day, you signed up to take care of patients, and you don't have the time, or you don't want to have the time to deal with all the compliance out there, to do the research, to follow up after your patients. You want to keep taking care of patients, and a company like Snapscale or any other managed service provider is there to support you. You got to take a look at it.
Snapscale.com/start, guys. Have a good afternoon. See ya.
Bye, guys.